Yeah, I would say the whole women's mid-card title was a thing that re-sparked debate again whether they should introduce one with the photos of Bianca holding the TKO title at the when they announced the merger. Because of just how many women they have on the roster that a lot of them are just not doing anything at this point.
I think they should scrap the women's tag titles. Like, get
That's what
rid of
everyone's
those.
saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those cursed fucking
They're fucking cursed. They don't ever add anything. Like, there's never like any real feuds going on for the women's tag titles because there's no real women's tag teams. Every single tag team. Okay, outside of like
Bailey and Sasha was the only real one I could think of.
Bailey and Sasha were a real one.
Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler was another real one.
Were they a real tag team at the time? Were they even?
They just kind of win it. Real.
Yeah.
I mean, the Iconics won them. That was an actual women's tag team.
Yep, and Sasha had a bitch fit backstage because of that.
That's cool. Listen,
she almost quit. Well, she eventually did quit, but she almost quit because of that. Remember that?
I don't blame her. I would have quit. I would have quit too. I don't know why, but I would have done it. But no, like get rid of those tag titles, and just bring in a women's fucking mid-card belt, which I think would go a lot better.
So like we were talking about the weight classes, another thing apparently that they're thinking about doing. I mean, you guys already know about their plan to eventually split the tag titles, which I think is a bad move. But also they're thinking about adding in trios titles. Which...
Yeah, I saw that. I think I think it could go well, but also I don't trust WWE's booking enough to make any tag titles matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they don't like the tag titles barely even fucking matter right now.
I think honestly, like the thing with that, AEW's trios titles, there's a lot of criticism about it, but I figure, you have all these, they already do all these 6-man tag matches anyway. You might as well have a belt on the line. Like I was saying
to be fair, so does WWE.
Exactly. Oh no, that's what I'm saying. Like it wouldn't be necessarily the worst thing. It's like, remember 205 Live when they kept doing tag team, like all the matches they did on 205 Live were tag matches, which made sense, I guess, because you want to get more TV time for more of the talent in 205 Live, and you can showcase them a lot better. But it's like, since most of your matches are tag matches, I remember everyone was like, you might as well just add in cruiserweight tag titles. Like, that's what everyone was saying. I remember that
being like a big rumor for a while that they were going to bring in tag titles.
They made cruiserweight tag titles, and they had them backstage. I know a lot of people don't like I know you don't like him, but Jack Gallagher did state that there are wrestlers who took photos with them, because there were plans to introduce the cruiserweight tag titles, and so they brought them backstage for 205 live tapings in case they decided this was the week they were going to bring them in and introduce them. So yeah, there are some of those cruiserweights from 205 Live who have photos holding those titles backstage.
Well, they should have brought them in. I think that would.
They should have.
That definitely would have helped the show.
Yes.
It's crazy when you look back at 205 Live. The biggest success story of 205 Live is Mustafa Ali. If you look back at all the talent that you've had, it's Mustafa Ali. Like because he's the only one that's still there from that time period.
Cedric Alexander.
Yeah, well, Cedric Alexander is in main event every week. Mustafa Ali's not doing so great himself, but at least he had an IC title match a couple months ago. And he has a North American title. Yeah, and NXT No Mercy.
He's at least doing stuff on NXT, whereas Cedric, I think he's teaming with Shelton, I think, still.
Yeah, they're free agents.
That division was so cursed.
Yes.
All those guys, like Jack Gallagher, fucking Rich Swann, Enzo Amore, so many of them got into really bad trouble. Like, I don't understand what was going on with that, with 205 Live.
Yeah, then they kind of started to hit their stride again when they went to NXT, but the biggest issue was with NXT is that almost 90% of the NXT roster were cruiserweights. So you lost the division, essentially, because it just became a second mid-card title.
But I think it works out better like that than it being its own show.
Oh, I 100% agree.
Because that was, like, a good time for the cruiserweight belt, when they had, like, Leo Rush going for it, and all those people like that. That's when it was fun during that period.
Yeah, it definitely gained a lot of interest from people, because I think, honestly, 205 Live never really... I can't tell you when it reached its peak, because it felt like it was kind of dead from the start, in my opinion. Like, from 2016 onward, obviously everyone loved the Cruiserweight Classic, like the actual tournament.
Yeah.
It had Zack Sabre Jr. and Kota Ibushi and a whole bunch of, like, everyone was talking about that. Then when it actually transitioned into its own brand, I never really heard a whole lot of buzz about it, really, like, during its entirety. I remember their big WrestleMania match. It was Cedric Alexander versus Mustafa Ali for the Cruiserweight title, and the whole, like, literally half the match was just camera cuts to John Cena in the crowd, and they were more focused on telling that story than actually, like, the story of the, like, they never cared about the Cruiserweight division ever. So it's like, it's kind of, it's a joke that they're talking about having 5, 6, 7 weight classes. That's not happening. It's not happening.
Like, it's kind of the same thing with, like, what the UK title was. The initial tournament, people liked it. It was good. It had fun storylines throughout the tournament. Minute you gave it its own show and shit, it went downhill quick. It just nosedived.
Well, I'm still not convinced that show was ever real. I never saw anyone talk about it. I never watched it. I never saw any clips from it. As far as I know, fucking NXT UK did not actually exist.
I'm guessing that plan at this point is dead for them to do, like, an NXT Japan and NXT Mexico and all over the place.
Yeah.
I can only hope. I can only hope that they don't ever plan on trying to fucking expand NXT like they wanted to.
The only way, like, they could never do it as, like, actual, like, shows on like Peacock or anything of, oh, you can tune in this week to watch NXT Europe and stuff. At the most I could see them do is trying to form, like, a performance center kind of thing so they could do regular tryouts in the UK and the European scene and stuff like that.
Isn't there supposed to be an NXT Europe? Didn't they announce that when they got rid of
did,
NXT
yeah.
UK?
Yes.
Wasn't?
I haven't heard anything.
Well, then I remember, like, I think that was, I don't know what happened. Yeah, I don't. What the fuck happened to that?
That was part of the whole NXT expansion thing, and then they never did it because they were going to wait a little bit because they wanted to naturally let NXT UK kind of die off. They were going to then...
But that was after they, like, the whole
Yeah,
expansion
that was the
thing
whole justification for shutting down
Yeah.
UK was to prepare for NXT Europe.
Yeah, because the whole expansion thing was pre-COVID, and that was the reason that never ended up happening. But the NXT Europe was after all that.
Yeah, that was supposed to be them retrying to do the expansion thing again, and it's pretty much failed because NXT's ratings also dropped because they had just done people still did not like the 2.0 NXT stuff yet.
There's the thing,
So,
like, I think it could have different results in different parts of the world because they were talking about, like, NXT Japan, I can't see that working, but they were also talking about NXT China. Maybe that could work just because we don't hear anything about wrestling in China, so they could, like, try to bring it to a new audience and actually, like, put money into it instead of, like, having Chinese people come over. Because remember, they had a couple of who's there still there? I think Xia Li still is in WWE. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about her though. Like, I think if you had, like, a whole thing about people, like, in China, I think they wanted to do a Brazil one too. Like, in markets that kind of are deprived from pro wrestling, it would work. But in places where it's already established, I think they would get absolutely destroyed in places like Japan and Mexico. 100%.
I think the biggest issue was with the whole expansion thing, and what a lot of people I was seeing was complaining about was the idea that WWE wasn't going to let these... It wasn't going to feel like you were watching an independent show or anything for these like these regions. Like, Japan has a very specific style of wrestling, and a lot of people felt like that stuff was not going to translate well, or WWE was going to give you a watered-down version of Japanese wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because they definitely would.
Yeah.
And they also, it would be, like, just like they did with the UK, if they tried to expand anywhere, it'll effectively kill that country's wrestling scene.
Right.
Yeah, like, it was really bad for indie UK wrestling when NXT UK came along. Not necessarily because NXT UK was successful, which it certainly was not, but of all the people they signed away. Yeah.
Which is fine, because British wrestling sucks, so it's okay that they killed that. But don't kill wrestling anywhere else.
Who the hell was on that brand aside from Gunther? He's obviously the one, but, like, anyone besides him that actually succeeded. Well, Ilya Dragunov hasn't really reached it yet.
Oh, that actually succeeded. Okay, I was gonna say fucking Wild Boar was on there. Remember Wild Boar?
JD McFucking whatever the fuck he's called now.
Yeah, JD McDonald.
McDonough.
Don't forget about Butch.
Oh yeah, he's going nowhere fast.
That's not true. Butch is awesome.
Yeah.
Apparently he's feuding with Tyler Bate again in NXT, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, Tyler Bate. Remember him? He was supposed to be a big deal.
The last time I heard anything about him, apparently he had a killer match with Ziggler months ago in main event.
Yeah, wasn't I the one who told you about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember it got a lot of buzz online too. That's like the first time I heard anyone talking about main event in the longest time. I understand, why are these shows still on? Who the fuck watches them? When we're talking about main event, level up, like why?
Okay, main event I guess it makes sense. It's just a way to. I don't know.
But if nobody tunes in, who cares what the purpose of it is?
I don't know. What is the point of main event anymore?
It's essentially just to figure out how crowds will react and see how people's like camera work really are. Because it's much
just
closer,
dark matches.
But it's much closer to the main roster kind of thing and stuff. And they'll have bigger people from like the main roster on versus people.
Yeah, but that's just dark matches.
Yeah. Like,
so
I'm confused.
But I don't want to watch it. No, and neither does anybody else.
I've been to a couple of Raws.
Bring back Superstars.
And they always do.
Was the shit.
They do main event like an hour before, and nobody gives a shit. Like, so like whatever your purpose is, the crowd just doesn't care anyway. So it's like, I mean, sometimes people are interested in it when you have like NXT people come to main event. I could see how that could be beneficial. Like, I know Joe Gacy shows up on main event quite often. I remember Aleister Black, before he became part of the main roster, had a couple of appearances on main event, so maybe it's like a good way, like a kind of like buffer for developmental guys before they reach the main roster to kind of see what main roster is like, especially like being in a bigger venue.
It's to introduce main roster crowds to these NXT people. Like, not everybody watches NXT. NXT kind of has like a hardcore crowd and stuff, so it's so that way
true. But not like, anybody watches main event.
Well, I mean, some people do. Some people do just obviously because like people know about like. The
Name me one person that watches main event.
I mean, I've seen the clips. There are people in the crowd for that. Whether they're there because
it's a Raw taping. No one's going to the Raw taping.
Yeah, it's like you saying that. Event. It's like you saying that people went to AW Dark, like.
But ultimately, they end up watching. Like, that's just the thing. It's like, yeah, they may not have chose to.
Okay, but I don't mean like the live crowd though, because like they have to watch it. They're there live. Name me one person that actually sits down and puts on main event.
I don't know. There's probably someone out there. I don't know anybody.
I used to watch. My Thursday night.
People I know who watch wrestling. So
my routine every Thursday night in 2009 was to watch WWE Superstars from, I think it was 7 to 8. And then I watched TNA Impact. Rule. Yeah, dude, they actually had some shit on back then. They had like fucking Matt Hardy and The Undertaker. Matt Hardy
and The Undertaker was on the debut episode.
Even like months after it premiered, you still had guys like Jericho and Kane on there. Like they actually tried for a little while. Like I think they just stopped giving a fuck.
We had gotten William Regal versus Daniel Bryan on Superstars.
Yeah, there was a rap battle between William Regal and R-Truth, which was pretty cool.
That's true. That shit ruled.
So like
William Regal was a gem in WWE. How that guy did not. They should have put him in the Hall of Fame already.
I mean, they will eventually. There was plans at one point that he was going to win the world title.
Yeah, then he got caught with drugs.
Yeah, which sucks because fucking William Regal, especially that was like 2008 or something like that, wasn't it?
When he was the king of he was the king of the ring and the Raw general manager at the time.
Yeah, like, and him like with a fucking world title run, that shit would have fucking been awesome.
Yeah.
What a missed opportunity. Like, big deal. He did drugs. They should have just let him keep doing them.
They should have just gave him a minor 30-day suspension I think you get for your first offense. I think it was his first offense at the time.
I think so.
So they should have just given him the suspension, bring him right back in. Hell, just make claims that he's hurt or something. That's why he's not on TV. But he's still giving directions as the GM from like home and stuff.
It's pretty funny.
I think it would have been a good idea, but
how they kind of flip-flop with the wellness policy, because we were talking about the wellness policy earlier, and like if you violate it, yes, you will get a strike and they will suspend you or whatever. But there was plenty of times where, like, depending on who the star was, they kind of there was a lot more leeway, like with Jimmy Uso especially with the DUIs that he kept getting, and also remember back in the day, Randy Orton kept getting a bunch of strikes against him. I think he actually was up to like 4 strikes one time, and then they took them off so that they wouldn't have to fire him. Like, so yeah, that's kind of fucked up that they're not consistent with it.
They never have been. They never will be. Also, just because we were talking about superstars, I needed to see what the main event of the first episode was. It was fucking Cody Rhodes and Shane McMahon in a 15-minute match. That shit sounds fucking crazy.
I do not remember that at all.
I don't either. I want to watch that shit. That's awesome.
Yeah, because didn't the debut episode of Superstars have the Taker Matt Hardy match?
Yeah, that was the opener.
They opened them. They had the Undertaker curtain jerk for Superstars.
Yeah, there was 3 matches on the show.
So Shane McMahon could be in the main event.
Yeah, the second match was
God.
The second match on the show was Christian and Finley in a 4.5-minute match.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's all I'll say is wow. That's all I'm gonna say.
Superstars is awesome.
Yeah, they had.
That's all I know.
They had back then. They had Superstars and they had Raw, SmackDown. ECW honestly felt like it was supposed to be like a third brand. It was more like just I don't even know what you want to call it. It was just filler.
At that point, it wasn't really ECW. It was just. I mean, it never was like ECW, but yeah, that point.
It was pseudo NXT pretty much.
Yeah, because that's when like Teddy Long, I believe, came out and did like the Superstar Talent Initiative or whatever, where he kept bringing in new guys.
With Armando Estrada, because he was the ECW general manager. They had an agreement. Yeah.
At one point, he was the general manager. Then there was like Tiffany was the general manager at one point. Remember Tiffany?
Yep.
Yes.
I remember that. You remember the fucking silver garbage ECW title that Mark Henry had?
Yeah,
I didn't mind the look of that title. I will admit, though, they should have sized the title down after Matt Hardy won the belt.
Oh, yeah.
Because they kept it, they made it especially bigger so Mark Henry could wear the title. And then they never made a smaller version of it for any other wrestler. So it looked gigantic on everybody.
I think the problem is there's a certain set of expectations that people have when you call it ECW. People expect like you crazy fucker, Justin. Like you expect chair shots to the head, unprotected chair shots, and no DQs, and all that stuff. Like as soon as they put like countouts and DQs to ECW, I think that's when a lot of people were like, "Okay, what the fuck is this?"
ECW for the first like year of it, it was you got one Extreme Rules match a night, no more, no less. Then you had to deal with it. You didn't get anything else. If your Extreme Rules match was Sabu versus Amish Roadkill, which it was on one of the episodes, that's all you got. You got nothing else. And you had to fucking live with that shit.
I'd say it just continuously went downhill as soon as Rob Van Dam got in trouble and all that shit happened.
Oh no, for sure. Like that definitely didn't help.
And Paul Heyman was, brought out of the company. Like,
but I will always say that fucking, as much as Big Show should not have been ECW champion, Big Show is ECW champion fucking ruled.
Dude, that match he had with Ric Flair, that was something.
It's crazy. Ric Flair fucking taking a thumbtack bump is fucking wild.
Yeah.
So at times it did feel like ECW, but I think
But that was still within the first year of it coming back though. Like that was like first like maybe 20 weeks of it being back or something.
December to Dismember was definitely a turning point.
That was fuck that pay-per-view. Holy shit.
Well, as soon as they made Bobby Lashley the star of that show, that's when people were just really, really shitting on it. It
had the potential to be good. Like, in my opinion, it is like probably one of the best names for a pay-per-view I have heard. Especially if you're going to do an ECW, WWE pay-per-view kind of thing. Like, it was a great name. I like the idea of the Extreme Elimination Chamber. It had high potential, terrible execution on everything.
Yeah, imagine being 10 years old, watching it live, having paid the money to see December to Dismember, and that's the show that I got. That was my Sunday entertainment on December whatever.
Should have been Punk.
Should have been
and then
Punk.
The
Definitely, Punk definitely should not have been the first person eliminated though.
Oh yeah.
The thing
Well,
is,
then
like,
also-
even outside of the Extreme Elimination Chamber, like, the whole show fucking sucked.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the tag match was good, even though it had no ECW people on it.
The 32-minute fucking
Hardy
Eminem
Boys-
and Hardy Boys match.
Yeah.
You go back and watch that match and tell me it's anything but mediocre.
I mean, it might be, but it's also I'm just saying, it's not in my opinion, the worst match on that card. But it's
okay,
also sad.
No, you're right. But
It is like probably
there's
the
nothing.
better
You're not
match,
comparing it to much.
but it's like probably the better match on that card, and it's sad because the biggest thing people bring up is they're like, it's the best match in the card, and it does not involve a single person who was on the ECW roster. Why are any of them there?
That's also true. But when the fucking card involves Balls Mahoney and Matt Stryker in a Strikers Rules match,
Listen, those two were classic together.
yeah. What about fucking Daivari and Tommy Dreamer?
Those two wrestled?
They sure did.
Hold on, I gotta
only-
look up this card now. I do not remember this card at
The
all.
only good thing about the Daivari Tommy Dreamer match is the Great Khali coming out and fucking double hand choke slamming Tommy Dreamer on the stage after the match. It's the only good part of it.
That does sound pretty cool.
That was cool.
Yeah, I think, the thing with ECW is basically their plan was for it to be, because I remember that's what their plan originally was when they purchased it. Or actually, no, Shane McMahon wanted to purchase it himself outside of WWE. Like, he wanted to own it himself, and he wanted to kind of be like a farm system, developmental for
He also
WWE.
wanted to do it. He wanted to do it. He wanted them to buy it, and he wanted to run it as an online, like WWE.com exclusive show. Which, weirdly enough, I think had they done that, it could have succeeded because you don't have the sponsor thing as much anymore. Where like the issue with sponsors not wanting like people getting cut open all the time.
But back then in like 2003, everyone had dial-up. How the fuck could people even watch that shit?
Listen, Shane McMahon was fucking ahead of the times. Like, he knew
He
what
wanted
was coming.
UFC too. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
He wanted
like
to buy
Shane
UFC.
McMahon literally like
Well, when he
knows
wanted
what
to
he's
run it,
doing.
yeah, when he wanted to run it as the internet show, it was right before they rolled out the first one night stand pay-per-view. So internet connection was better at the time. It wasn't great, but it was still early 2000s internet. But
Remember, like, fucking... So, in 2007, ECW, I remember Johnny Nitro and CM Punk, they were, like, the two main stars. It was... Chris Benoit was supposed to be the one to win the ECW title, and then, certain things happened. But it's, like... It just kept every year. Like, by 2008, it was, like... By the 2008, in my opinion, it was completely unwatchable. Especially, you had Chavo Guerrero as the ECW champion, and he lost the title in, like, 8 seconds to Kane. And then Kane lost it to Mark Henry, and then Matt Hardy got the title. I remember the 2008 draft.
Swagger beat him. Swagger
Yes.
beat Matt Hardy.
Swagger, yeah, I remember when he did his entrance with the ECW title and he dropped it on the floor and he just like stared down at the floor like shit. It was basically like NXT, like it was, well, not nearly as good as NXT. Like I'd even put NXT 2.0 above like ECW at its height, the WWE version, honestly. But
I don't know. Like ECW started to have like really good matches. It was just it's always gonna get looked at as a disappointment because of the
They
name
called
of-
it ECW.
Yeah,
also
like,
the
if
way
they
they
had
presented it, like they
If
had
they
Chavo
called it
Guerrero.
anything else.
Chavo was the reigning ECW champion. They had him in the Royal Rumble, like to try to compete for their actual titles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I also looked up the card, and yeah, they also had Elijah Burke and Sylvester Terkay against the FBI.
They sure
Okay.
did.
Yeah, the Daivari versus Tommy Dreamer match, the intergender tag match with Kevin Thorne and Ariel against Mike Knox and Kelly Kelly.
Do you guys
Oh, yeah.
remember Do you remember TLC 2009? That was the show when John Cena lost the title to Sheamus in a tables
Oh,
match.
yeah.
They
Yes.
also did Batista and Undertaker in the chairs match, and that shit was fucking stupid because they had Batista hit the Undertaker in the dick, and he got disqualified in a
Because it
chairs
wasn't a
match
chair.
because it wasn't a chair. But another match that was on
chair.
there. Sorry, my fucking phone's going off. I don't understand.
Oh, was it fucking
It's more
Christian and
professional.
Shelton
Christian
Benjamin
and
in a
Shelton
ladder match
Benjamin,
for the
and that was
ECW
yes,
title?
that was a good match. That was a really good one. But
That match fucking ruled.
that was like the only match in
biggest thing-
2009 that like was even like relevant.
The biggest thing I
ECW.
remember about that match though is I think Shelton Benjamin gets busted open early on, and they like pause the match for like 3 minutes and like glue the wound shut so there's no blood, because this was during the time when they were like super strict about blood.
Right
Mhm.
after like they went PG, but also
Yeah,
like,
this was
and
like
then-
the super start of that, because this is like 2009.
Yeah, plus after HBK and Chris Jericho said "fuck your PG" and bled everywhere right after they went PG.
Another thing I remember in 2009, I tuned into a random episode of ECW just to see, like what was going on. I remember back then you had Christian was the ECW champion. He held it for a while. I think Zack Ryder was one of the top stars over there too, and
Yeah,
Goldust.
That was when he was wearing the cool fucking one-legged
Half
tights.
pants. Yeah, half pants, half trunks.
One
That
of the
shit was
episodes they had, literally
stupid.
the entire show was just a replay of The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels from WrestleMania 25. And I'm just like, that just shows how little they fucking care about this show.
Yeah, to be fair, once Christian became the ECW title, the writing was kind of on the wall at that point. Like,
Was
no
that
offense-
maybe like a fucking like holiday episode where they didn't have anything filmed, so it was just kind of like a here's a best of 2000 whatever year that was?
Because I don't think they did
Because
that.
they did that a lot.
I don't know, because it was always ECW / SmackDown tapings. I don't think SmackDown did anything like it that week,
There was times when like they
There
would
were
do,
times,
like,
yeah.
on their holiday episodes.
They mostly did
And
it also around
They would do like
WrestleMania,
best ofs.
because they would already be in the city where WrestleMania was by the time Tuesday came for the taping. So, like, you'd have an episode of Raw, but then SmackDown would just be like a whole bunch of replays, like the show before WrestleMania.
Yeah.